John 1:38. Conversus autem Iesus, et videns eos sequentes, dicit eis, quid quaeritis, qui dixerunt ei Rabbi, quod dicitur interpretatum magister, ubi habitas. But Jesus, having been turned around and seeing these men following him, we would say in English, he says to them, here we've got a direct quotation, quid quaeritis, what are you seeking? Quid quaeritis, what are you seeking? Who, or in English we would say, and they, dixerunt, they said to him, ei, rabbi, which is said, or means, when it has been translated, teacher. And then the quotation continues, ubi habitas, where are you dwelling? Where are you staying right now? We might also add a question mark in there. So now Jesus is interacting with John's disciples, the disciples of John the Baptist, who have followed him after hearing, "This is the Lamb of God." And probably the most interesting thing in this passage to mention is this conversus. This is the fourth principal part of converto, which is a third conjugation verb, to change, to reverse, to turn. It can mean a lot of different things. Here what we've got is the perfect passive participle, and you can see that from its relationship to the fourth principal part here. Conversus. Now this is passive. So what we've got here literally is Jesus, not Jesus turning around, which would require an active perfect participle, which does not exist in the Latin language. So instead we've got the perfect passive participle having been turned around. But I think what's going on here is in imitation of the Greek middle voice. Remember, our Vulgate translators are often trying very closely to model their Latin prose on the Greek New Testament. I think this is basically the equivalent of a middle. Now, of course, there is no middle voice in Latin, but perhaps what they're trying to approximate here is the idea, of course, that Jesus turned himself around. That is to say, he turned his body around so that he could see those who were following him, sequentes. Now, we had sequor, sequi in our last verse, to follow. Remember, this is a deponent verb, but nevertheless, it has an active participle, which proved very useful in sentences like this. So Jesus sees them in the accusative case. That also applies to eos here, which is our personal pronoun. Accusative, plural, masculine, from is, id. Of course, we want to notice our other present participle here, videns, from video, to see. Seeing them following, and remember here, where's our main verb? Here's our main verb, dicit. He says, videns and sequentes, as present active participles, are signaling to us that these actions are happening at the same time as, or contemporaneous with, dicit. At the same time, in other words, as Jesus is saying this, he's seeing them following. Or to put it the other way, at the moment that he's seeing them following, he is saying this. Conversus, however, because of its perfect meaning, is indicating that first Jesus turned his body around, and then these other things happened all at once. He says to them, dative plural here, what are you seeking? Quid quaeritis? In other words, what do you want? Now here we could just as easily have said illi instead of qui. Qui, who, or those guys said, we might say to which they responded. Third person plural, perfect active indicative from dico dicere. They said to him, Rabbi. Now we have this interesting parenthetical remark, quod dicitur interpretatum magister. Let's break this down. This might have been confusing to you at first. Which verbum, perhaps we're meant to understand here. Which verbum dicitur interpretatum. We might summarize this whole phrase simply with the equivalent significat, that is, which means magister teacher. But what we've actually got is this little relative clause, quid dicitur interpretatum, literally, which is said once it has been translated, that is changed into another language, that is the Latin language in this case, magister ubi habitas, from habito habitare, where are you living, where are you dwelling. So this is a little bit paraphrastic, this expression. It's a little bit kind of a circumlocution, I guess. But again, it's following very closely the Greek text, which you'll see if you look at the Greek New Testament. We might wish that they had just said significat, but this is the text as it stands.